satisfactory. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to ask, I guess it is kind of a follow-up question because you just kind of answered it. But as far as, like, because when I heard what this lecture was about, does God matter, right? It's, you know, you hear a lot of people saying that you can be a good person without having God in your life. Now, that's taking the assumption that having God in your life is to be a good person. Am I off on that? I mean, is that the assumption that they're making?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay. So as far as deeds go, right? Like, you know, a lot of us think that being a good person is to not commit a sin or something, right? How far does that, what does God have to do with those kinds of things? As in making society better by just deeds in Islam?
I'm not sure what it means to say that you can be a good person without God.
Well,
do you mean without believing in God, or without God telling you what to do?
Yeah, no, see, I mean, I talk to a lot of people who are agnostic or who are atheists who just say that, you know, you can, like, what really matters is helping other people, being good to other people. I don't know, that's what they say.
No, the question is, how can you define good? In terms
right, so but they're defining it right there, is that, like, you know, it's not about not praying 5 times a day. That's not what being good is about. They're saying that it's not about these legal rulings in Islam or any religion. It's just about being good to other people, and that's their definition.
If we're coming from an atheist or an agnostic perspective, to use the word good is dishonest.
Isn't it?
Well, tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I'm not.
To use the word good is dishonest, because you're using a word that has no meaning, that has no definition from an atheist perspective, or that has no clear definition in an agnostic perspective. Right? What you can say from an atheist perspective is that you can be a balanced person, you can be a fulfilling person who leads a fulfilling life, or whatever else you may define it. There's no such thing as good, which is sort of related to the earlier question on what is the difference in perspective. Right? How can you, or on what basis, can an agnostic or an atheist justify the use of the term good in any context? Is there an answer to the question?
Yeah.
Sure.
What if I was to say, I don't have a belief, I just have a philosophy of living and letting.
So it's fulfilling for you.
Sorry?
In other words, you have a philosophy of living. This makes sense for me. It works for me.
Exactly.
It works. So it's full. It's so.
Because even for an animal, when it's created and it comes onto this earth, I mean, we don't exactly know what's going on in its brain, but it figures things out. It learns from what it's being taught by its parents or something.
Yeah, it's not fair.
Terms like good, terms like ethics, terms like things that we think or we associate with civilization or maybe religion or maybe beliefs that we've gotten that are taught them. I mean, they can exist for atheists as well. I mean,
no, exactly what you said can exist for an atheist. What works? I decided, right, I as an atheist went around killing people for no reason for a while, and I decided that it just doesn't work for me. It makes me feel bad when I go to sleep, so I stopped killing people and I decided to not do it. But I have no right to say that when I was killing people, I was any worse than when I decided to get my jollies by playing Wii all night. There is no moral difference between the two. One is not better than the other. And if somebody comes up to me and says to me that, well, you play Wii and I go around killing toddlers, you know, or microwaving them until they burst, that's fulfilling for me, I have nothing to say to that. Do I?
Well, hopefully most atheists also believe, are also scientifically minded or think that science is probably something that explains things better to them than you know, believing in God or something. And just by trial and error, they know that, you know, killing someone or doing something bad is probably going to come around to them. It's something that over the years.
So we can speak of what works. Either what's fulfilling for me, or some karma, which again, it's problematic if you're an atheist, but if you can believe in some non-theistic sense of karma, fine. But again, we're only talking about what works.
That was good.
Right? So the whole question of I can be a good person as an atheist or as an agnostic is meaningless. Because as an atheist, there's no such thing as good. And as an agnostic, I don't know if there's a such thing as good.
How do you define good?
Well, you can't without a theistic perspective. I'm not saying as a Muslim. I'm not even saying that you have to believe in a God. Right? You can have a non-theistic in the sense of a moral code that you believe in a deeper truth without believing in God as an active force. Right? It's possible to do that. But as an atheist or as an agnostic, to say I can be a good person as an atheist is a dishonest statement.
We gotta have a common language to talk to the theist, right?
Well, why do you have to have a common language?
How do you explain or answer a question posed by a theist saying, how do you decide what is right and what is good? And if I'm an atheist, I don't have it in my dictionary.
I've searched and I haven't been able to find an answer.
So, could you define good, since that's a pretty big crux of what's the discussion of what is good?
Well, from a religious perspective, and this what we're talking about today is not limited to an Islamic perspective. It's not limited to a Judeo-Christian Islamic perspective of believing in a God. This concept of good would apply to any of those religions. It would also apply to a deist, right? To a person who just believes in some force or some deeper truth. But good represents what is, I want to say truth, or what is actual, or what is real, or what is eternal. Right? Depending now on what conception of God or a deeper truth you have. Right? From an Islamic or from a religious perspective, it will be that which is in accordance with God's creation and the way that His essence manifested itself in the universe. So that which represents a deeper reality, right, that goes beyond simply the surface. That is the essence of good. To put it more simply, that which has an origin in God is what is good. Whether it be creational or whether it be legal. So good can come from God having created me to not like murdering innocent people, or it can be from God having told me to do this at a certain time, say to pray in a certain way. Whether it be creational or whether it be legislational. And is the difference between the two clear? One is just the way that God made me to think a certain way, to feel a certain way. And one is, I wouldn't know if God hadn't told me, but He told me. Right? Any of those, because they represent something that has an origin in God, that is good.
So you're referring to there's two ways. One of those ways is the moral compass that is within us.
Yes.
And so I think atheists would argue that they are talking about that same moral compass. Now you and an atheist might disagree on where that moral compass came from.
No, we're not disagreeing about where it came from only. We're disagreeing on whether it is a moral compass or simply an accident of evolution. Or not evolution, simply a meaningless fact. Right? An atheist can't say that I believe in the same moral compass, I just don't believe God created it. The word moral, part of it, doesn't make sense. In other words, if I don't believe in some deeper reality that moral compass is reflecting, then what is the difference between my moral compass and the migratory pattern of a bird? That's programmed, right? And if there were a bird that didn't want to migrate and was able to build itself a nice little summer heated villa in Saskatchewan, then it should be able to live in Saskatchewan and be comfortable. Right? There's nothing, nobody can argue to that bird that that's not in accordance with what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be in Mexico right now. Right? So if there is an atheist who says that, well,